Alright guys, welcome back to Underground Science, and in this video we'll just be looking at an overview of the kidney. Alright, so let's go and get started. So let's write some, I guess, important facts about the kidney, about what the kidney does. So the kidney is actually responsible for filtering, filtering our blood. Alright, so for filtering our blood. So that's one thing our kidney is responsible for, is filtering our blood. All right, and also as we look deeper into our functional units of our kidneys, we'll see that a lot of things take place, and some of the main things, right, at least two of the main things are going to be reabsorption, so reabsorption of certain nutrients, and also secretion. All right, so we'll see these two main things happening throughout our functional unit of our kidney. And our functional unit of our kidney is actually going to be called the nephron. All right, there's going to be a bunch of nephrons. It's actually around 1,000,000. So there's about 1,000,000 nephrons, 1,000,000 nephrons in each kidney. All right, so in each kidney. So keep in mind we have two kidneys. All right, so in each kidney. So that's pretty insane, all right? Insanely awesome. Okay, so some of the functions of our kidneys, right, are filtering and collecting our blood, reabsorbing nutrients into our blood. So whenever we use the term reabsorption, right, especially when we're talking about the kidneys, it means we're reabsorbing nutrients into the blood, all right, so into the blood. And then whenever we talk about secretion, we're talking about we're secreting, or we're taking back certain things from the blood, certain materials from the blood, or certain compounds, we could say, back into the filtrate. So instead, it's going from what we could say, it's going from the kidney. So here, you know what? Let's just differentiate like this. So it's going from the kidney, right, to the blood. And then when we're talking about secretion, we can say, just to generalize it, we can say it's going from the blood back to the kidney, is what the term secretion generally means. All right, so it's going from the blood back to the kidney. When I say kidney in particular, we'll see later on that I'm talking about the filtrate in our nephron. All right, so I'm talking about the filtrate in our nephron when I'm talking about going back into the kidney. All right, and we'll see all of this later on as we dive deeper into the nephron structures and all that. All right, but let's actually talk about some things about the kidney. All right, I mean some structures, looking at the picture itself. So I actually got two pictures. All right, I don't know where the second one went. Let me go and pull it up real quick. All right, here's the second picture. Right, so the reason why I pulled up two pictures is so that we can see some structures better in one of the kidney pictures than the other. So let's first talk about our renal cortex. All right, so our renal cortex. Our renal cortex is going to be the outside of our kidney. All right, so when we're talking about that renal cortex, that's where we're going to see a lot of our nephron parts. All right, so let's go ahead and draw a renal cortex. So you can't really see it well. Let's see. Let's go and do it in this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to outline a section, right, representing the renal cortex. So in the renal cortex, we're going to have many structures, right, which we'll go over in the basic structures of the kidney video, right? But we're pretty much going to see things like this, all right? Just to simplify it a little bit so we don't spend too much time, right? So we're going to have many structures like this, right, dipping down. And as we can see, it's actually, so let me go ahead and exaggerate it just a little bit more so we can see it. So it's actually gonna dip down into this structure right here. And so, let's start off with this structure. These structures right here, just go and highlight this one, is gonna be called our renal medulla. All right, so renal medulla. And the outside lining, right, where we see all these little structures that are dipping down, the outside lining in black, as you can see there, is going to be called our renal cortex. Our renal cortex of our kidney. All right. And so that's that so far. Now let's look at this. Now let's look at how our kidney gets the blood. Okay. So let's go over to this structure, and I promise we'll have better drawings of when we talk about the actual nephron. All right. So this is another good picture of the kidney. And so right here, as we can see right here, is a humongous artery, and this artery is called our renal artery. All right, so a renal artery, and this is where we're going to get our blood, oxygenated, nutrients-dense blood, to our kidneys. And it turns out we actually receive, into our renal artery, we receive around 1,100 milliliters of blood per minute. And it turns out that the total blood volume, right, in our body is around 5,000 milliliters. So 5,000 milliliters is going to be around the total blood volume. All right, so let me go and write that a little clearer, a little better. The total blood volume in our body. So if we estimate it, that means our kidneys and our renal artery will be receiving all of our blood in around 5 minutes. All right, so that's pretty cool to know. So let's go and write that down. So our kidneys, especially our renal artery, right, will actually receive all of our body's blood, right? So all 5,000 milliliters of blood in 5 minutes. So we'll receive all 5,000 milliliters of blood in about 5 minutes. All right, which is pretty cool. All right, so that's a good thing to know. And then what's going to happen, as we'll see later, is that as our nutrients go into our kidneys and as we filter everything out, right? As we filter everything out, all of the nutrients that, let's say, gets dumped into the interstitial space, right, of our kidneys all those nutrients can actually get picked up and drop back into our renal vein. All right, so this is going to be our renal vein. Okay, so right here is in blue is going to be our renal vein, where all of our nutrients that we filtered out can get dropped back into and join into our renal vein. And as we know, this renal vein will go back to our heart and get pumped into circulation. All right, so nutrients that we can straight up reabsorb into our blood vessels that can actually join back into the renal vein and then bring it back into circulation. All right, so it's going to be our renal vein. All right, and right here, this huge yellow structure here in the picture, so let me go and highlight that in a better way. All right, right here is going to be our ureter. And our ureter will actually bring the urine down and drop it off into our bladder. So our ureter will actually carry the urine into our bladder. And to be more specific, our ureters actually drop off the urine into our bladder on the dorsal side of the bladder. All right, so onto the dorsal, or also known as posterior, right? Onto dorsal side of bladder. All right, so let's go and write that in parentheses. All right, so just so we can know to take this into account. All right, so those are some of the structures there, and we talked about how the renal medulla, right? This is the renal medulla, and another fact to know is that in the renal medulla is where we're going to be the most salty. All right, so that may not make much sense right now, but we'll see why later on. All right, so it's going to be very salty, I should say, right? It's going to be very, very salty. And we'll see why when we talk about the basic structures of the nephron and actually dive deeper. All right, but remember that in the renal medulla, it's going to be very salty. and we'll see the structures that are in the renal medulla and the structures of the nephron that are in the renal cortex, and we'll get more into that. All right, and so we have just two more things to talk about. Is that we have renal calyces and a renal pelvis. So our renal calyces are actually all around here. All right, so all around here near our renal medulla, that actually will collect all of the urine from our collecting ducts. All right, so from our collecting ducts. Couldn't speak there for a little bit. So all of this part right here, sorry it's not that clear in the picture, but hopefully we'll get the idea soon as we move on into the kidney playlist, right? So this is going to be our renal calyces, all right? This is where, just keep in mind for future videos, is that in our nephron we have a structure called a collecting duct, and this is where our urine from our collecting duct, will dump into, all right, eventually. And so after renal calyces, we meet up at another spot, right, called the renal pelvis, which is going to be around this area right here. So let's go and label this as our renal pelvis. All right, and our renal pelvis is pretty much the next spot that our urine goes to after renal calyces. Then from our renal pelvis, as we can see, it connects to our ureter, and then our urine goes down our ureter, and then eventually it enters through the backside of our bladder. All right, so this is going to be our bladder. And know that we have two kidneys, right? So we're actually going to have another ureter, right, coming down here from the other kidney, entering the back side of the bladder, the dorsal side of the bladder, right, or the posterior side. All right, and that's pretty much it. That's the overview that I wanted to get through in this video. We'll dive deeper into the future videos, right? It's just a regular introduction just to get the names familiar with. All right, and we didn't actually talk about the blood pressure regulation that our kidneys are really important in playing, but we can talk about that once we talk about the specific structure involved inside the kidneys, right? That's involved in blood pressure regulation. But if we want, we can go ahead and write that down also, that the kidneys also play a major role in blood pressure regulation. All right, so blood pressure regulation. And we also see that the specific cells inside the nephron of the kidney, we see can get acted upon by specific hormones. All right, so we can just say we'll see hormone regulation also inside our kidneys. All right, through specific intracellular mechanisms. All right, that we'll see in a future video. All right, but that's a main one too. So I guess it's good to state it also in this video. All right, so along with blood pressure, we'll see many more things like regulating the pH, right? So it also regulates. So our kidneys also regulate, right? Also regulate the pH, all right? So it's also regulate the pH through the use of our H+ ions and bicarb, all right? And I guess we should mention an important enzyme, right, called carbonic anhydrase. That's also going to be involved, all right, in the regulation of pH. So now that's pretty much it, all right? I guess it's good enough just to get an overview of the kidney itself. So yeah, I hope this video made sense to you guys. I hope to see you guys in my future videos where I'll talk about more cool topics about biochem, physics, and chem. And don't forget to hit that notification bell, all right, so you know when I'm publishing my future videos. Don't forget to like and subscribe. All right, guys, see you guys later, and stay safe.